Hola, hola chicos, ¿cómo están todos? Qué gusto saludarlos. Muy buenas noches tengan todos ustedes.
Buenas noches. Lunes
Hola,
de
hola, buenas
crecimiento.
noches.
Héctor, qué gusto verte, hermanito, con esa energía.
También.
¿Cómo están? Mario,
Muy
Nancy,
bien, muy bien. Un abrazote, Sten.
Raúl, Humberto, Josué, ya. Más
Hola a
rápido
todos,
empiezan a
buenas
aparecer
noches.
los que los puedo mencionar. Jesús, muchos de ustedes que los veo todos los días a las 6 de la
De la
mañana. Y
mañana.
verlos aquí conectados me encanta. Hoy estar doblemente con ustedes es muy emocionante. Qué bonito verlos, qué bueno estar con todos ustedes. Gracias por estar conectados. De verdad que me llena de muchísima emoción. De verdad, muy bonita estar aquí con todos ustedes e iniciar este lunes de crecimiento. ¿Cómo les fue? Compártanme en el chat cómo les fue. Hay varios microfonitos abiertos y se mete el ruido. Entonces los voy a silenciar rápidamente, ¿vale? Para que no se mete el ruido en la llamada. Pero compártanme en el chat cómo les fue el compromiso de la semana anterior o lo que hablamos la semana anterior fue de un tema muy bonito que es el tema de la vulnerabilidad. La semana anterior justamente coincidió que uno de mis chiquitos tuvo un accidente y les compartí justamente pues qué pude aprender al respecto y cómo la vulnerabilidad es un principio tan bonito, tan importante y muchas veces no nos damos cuenta que abrazar nuestra vulnerabilidad no es más que abrazar también nuestra grandeza y nuestra fortaleza. Así que para mí de verdad es muy importante ser conscientes que la vida pasa en un instante y simplemente abrazar nuestra grandeza con muchísimo, muchísimo amor, ¿vale? Así que, bien, entonces compárteme tú cómo te sientes, cómo te fue, qué fue lo que aprendiste. Me encantaría de verdad, perdón, me encantaría de verdad que lo podamos ver, ¿vale? Así que ahí está, en el chat. Gracias chicos, de verdad, ¿qué calificación te pones? Diego por acá se pone un 3. Yo me voy a poner un 7, yo me voy a poner un 7 por acá, sí. Yo me voy a poner un 7, ponen por acá un 4.7, se ponen un 6, se ponen un 8.5, un 3.35. Entonces, ¿qué es lo que aprendiste? ¿Qué fue? ¿Qué fue lo que viviste? ¿Vale? ¿Qué fue lo que viviste? Ok, compárteme qué fue lo que aprendiste, qué fue lo que viviste. Realmente es muy importante, ¿no? Que lo podamos ver y que podamos ser conscientes, obviamente, de todo eso, ¿vale? Yo creo que algo que quiero compartirles, de verdad, para mí, que ha sido una experiencia muy fuerte y me acordé mucho justo de una de las leyes de John Maxwell, que para mí es de las leyes más importantes. Tiene mucho tiempo, como 8 meses que estudiamos esta ley, como 8 meses. Pero yo creo que es de los principios más poderosos y justamente tiene que ver, yo creo que si hablamos un poco del tema de la vulnerabilidad, hablamos de la grandeza, hablamos de crear una visión, de trabajar por creer, por crecer, por construir una visión extraordinaria, por crear la vida de nuestros sueños. Entonces, el siguiente tema del que tenemos que hablar invariablemente es del tema de la aceptación. Y la aceptación yo creo que es el camino a la grandeza, es el camino al crecimiento. Yo creo que una vida puede crecer conforme esté dispuesta a aceptar. Y yo creo que la aceptación tiene diferentes vertientes. Una de estas vertientes te la voy a explicar yo y la otra vertiente te la va a explicar John Maxwell, ¿vale? Entonces la aceptación tiene dos vertientes que para mí son poderosas, son hermosas, son profundas, son admirables, son extraordinarias. Tener una vida en vulnerabilidad es tener una vida en conciencia. Tener una vida en conciencia es tener una vida en amor. Yo creo que el amor se manifiesta siempre a través de la conciencia. El amor no puede ser inconsciente. Eso me lo has escuchado decir una y otra vez. Eso te lo repito, tal vez una vez a la semana o tal vez una vez al mes, no lo sé, pero el amor es consciente. Eso lo hace amor. Eso lo hace ser amor. No puede ser amor si no es consciente. No puede ser consciente si no existe un esfuerzo por crear una manifestación a final de cuentas. Y para mí yo creo que el tener una vida en aceptación es tener una vida en conciencia. Recuerda lo siguiente, aceptarte a ti, aceptar tu luz y tu oscuridad, aceptar tu grandeza y también tus retos, aceptar tu dolor y tu vulnerabilidad, la aceptación que yo hago a mi persona, a mi potencial, a mi capacidad de ser, de conectar, de amar, de proveer, de servir, de agregar valor. Esa aceptación es un acto de amor propio. Muchas personas, la razón de por qué no despegan o no detonan una vida extraordinaria es porque viven en un estado de carencia de amor propio. Y este estado de carencia de amor propio es un estado de carencia de aceptación. ¿A qué me refiero con esto? Si yo no soy capaz de aceptar mi amor, si no soy capaz de aceptar mi grandeza, Si no soy capaz de aceptar mi luz, no soy capaz de reconocer mi valor. Y si no soy capaz de reconocer mi valor, no soy capaz de agregar mi valor a otros seres humanos. Ahora, no lo comparto desde un sentido, de una perspectiva ególatra. Yo entiendo que esto puede parecer de repente, cuando carece una persona de contexto o de desarrollo humano, puedes decir, ay, que sí, ¿no? Uy, reconózcanme, cuánto valgo. Y no es el objetivo. Aquí lo importante es reconocer lo valioso que eres desde el amor, no desde una perspectiva egoísta, no desde una perspectiva alzada, pero desde una perspectiva humilde. Dentro de esta perspectiva de reconocimiento de valor, de reconocer mi valía, puedo reconocer el valor de los demás. El amor reconoce, y cuando reconoce, por ejemplo, cuando yo reconozco con amor mi valor, invariablemente, si es desde el amor y no desde el ego, yo automáticamente reconozco que ese mismo valor que yo tengo es un valor que es inherente a cualquier otra persona en el mundo. Reconozco que los otros seres humanos, que las demás personas valen porque son seres humanos, valen porque son personas que llevan el mismo valor que yo llevo, lo llevan en su vida, lo llevan en su mente, lo llevan en su corazón y por lo tanto, obviamente, tienen un potencial increíble que pueden aprovechar. Ese valor a mí es el impulso que me ha llevado a creer en el potencial humano, a creer en el potencial de las personas y a tener la certeza y la fe de que cada ser humano puede levantarse y crear y creer una vida de verdad completamente extraordinaria, llena de amor, llena de abundancia, llena de alegría, llena de inspiración y obviamente estar dispuesto a generar una vida en total y absoluta grandeza. Te lo cuento de verdad con muchísimo amor. Para mí, el dolor más grande que yo puedo ver y reconocer en las personas es cuando carecen de esta aceptación. Y por lo tanto, como yo no puedo aceptar mi grandeza, me cuesta mucho trabajo dar el siguiente paso hacia la vida de mis sueños, dar el siguiente paso en mi proyecto, porque tal vez creo que no lo voy a poder lograr, creo que no voy a ser suficiente, creo que me va a costar trabajo, creo que va a ser más difícil de lo que puedo imaginar, creo que solamente es una falta de amor desde mi perspectiva. Solo falta un poquito de amor en la persona para que la persona sea capaz de reconocer el valor maravilloso que tiene y que pueda reconocer toda la grandeza que vive en su corazón y el impacto tan grande y tan hermoso que puede crear con su vida hacia otros seres humanos. En pocas palabras, para mí, una vida en crecimiento constante requiere de aceptación. Y el primer tipo de aceptación probablemente suena un poco romántico, es la aceptación de tu grandeza, es la aceptación de tu luz, es la aceptación de tu verdad, es aceptar que viniste con un potencial hermoso, es aceptar que tienes valor que dar, es aceptar que tienes sueños, reconocerlos, mirar a tus adentros y aceptar que la vida puede ser mejor de lo que es, aceptar que hay luz en tu camino, aceptar que si estás pasando por una noche oscura, que va a llegar un bello amanecer, aceptar que si vas caminando y todo es oscuro va a haber luz al final del túnel, aceptar que todo puede mejorar. Recuerda que mejor es posible, recuerda que puedo ser un mejor esposo, un mejor padre, un mejor hijo, un mejor hermano, un mejor empresario, un mejor ser humano, puedo ser una mejor persona porque mejor es posible. Cuando tengo este nivel de aceptación, ya acepté que mejor es posible y acepté que yo tengo un potencial extraordinario, acepté que tengo valor en mi persona, soy consciente de mi valor y entonces me amo a través de esa conciencia, me estoy amando cuando me reconozco en conciencia y reconozco que tengo un potencial hermoso que dar, entonces viene el segundo nivel de la aceptación, el segundo paso, viene ese otro camino que yo necesito emprender. La primera aceptación no vale nada si no viene acompañada de la segunda aceptación. Y te quiero explicar este detalle a mayor profundidad. La aceptación de tu grandeza, la aceptación de tu luz, la aceptación de todas las cosas hermosas y positivas que hay en tu vida no vale absolutamente nada si no viene acompañada de la aceptación del dolor que implica pagar el precio para conquistar tus sueños y crear una realidad diferente. La primera aceptación no vale nada si no viene acompañada de esta segunda aceptación. Así que vivir en amor requiere vivir en aceptación. Y vivir en aceptación requiere de dos lados de una moneda y ambos lados tienen que ser igual de grandes. Mientras más aceptas tu luz, tienes que tener una disposición mayor para aceptar el dolor que implica pagar el precio. Ahora, el dolor lo puedes aceptar. Esto para mí esto es algo hermoso y súper interesante. Tú el dolor lo puedes dosificar. Y con dolor, imagina una persona que quiere hacer ejercicio, que quiere bajar de peso. Tú puedes dosificar el dolor. ¿Qué significa esto? Tú puedes 1000 días dosificar 30 minutos de dolor cuando haces ejercicio. O tú puedes querer dosificar el dolor. Dicen, bueno, no 1000 días, hago 1 hora por 500 días. O, ok, no hago 1 hora por 500 días, hago 2 horas por 250 días. Y al final de cuentas, vas a estar viviendo y manifestando prácticamente la misma cantidad de dolor. ¿Estás de acuerdo? O sea, el dolor va a ser casi el mismo, solamente que tú puedes elegir dosificarlo o no. Pero el dolor lo tienes que pagar. El dolor no es opcional. El dolor en la vida no es opcional. Sin embargo, cuando eres consciente de esto, tú puedes elegir de qué manera lo vas a pagar. El precio de la grandeza no es negociable. Lo que es negociable es cuándo lo pagas, con qué intensidad lo pagas y con qué frecuencia lo pagas. Por eso, de verdad, amo la frase de Jim Rohn. El éxito es una renta y la renta se paga todos los días. El éxito no es negociable, tal cual. Y necesitamos tener esta mentalidad. ¿Tienes grandes sueños? Entonces tienes que pagar grandes precios. Lennon Ledbetter, un extraordinario experto en desarrollo humano, me enseñó esto y tal cual. Dice, hay 3 fases. The dream, the struggle, the victory. The dream, the struggle, the victory. El sueño, la lucha y la victoria. ¿Tienes grandes sueños? Pues más vale que vengan acompañados de grandes luchas. Tienes grandes sueños y pequeñas luchas, vas a tener pequeñas victorias. No hay manera de que solamente grandes sueños te lleven a grandes victorias. Eso no pasa, eso no es posible, eso no ha sucedido y eso nunca va a suceder. Si tienes grandes sueños, esos grandes sueños necesitan venir acompañados de una gran lucha y entonces tendrás una gran victoria. Peor escenario del mundo, pequeños sueños y una gran lucha. Y eso es lo que me duele de no solamente México, pero de Latinoamérica. Pequeños sueños, pero una gran lucha. Yo veo de verdad gente hermosa con un corazón de oro que se despierta y trabaja de sol a sol, que tiene una gran lucha. Ahí está mi mamá, una gran lucha. Mamá soltera, 3 trabajos para mantener a 4 hijos. Tuvo una gran lucha, pero en su momento tuvo sueños muy pequeños. Y por tener sueños muy pequeños, su gran lucha solamente estaba dirigida a pequeñas victorias. Si te das cuenta, la vida es cuestión de tu mentalidad, de tu contexto, pero sobre todo de cuánto amor estés dispuesto a vivir, de con cuánto amor estés dispuesto a crear y construir una vida extraordinaria. Así que la aceptación es clave para una vida de maravilla, una vida extraordinaria. Chicos, dense cuenta de algo, ya se nos fue el primer mes del año. 12 meses tenemos. Es algo increíble, ¿no? O sea, ya se nos fue el 8.3% del año. Es una locura. O sea, es una verdadera locura. 31 días se nos fueron. Es algo increíble, es el 8.5% casi. O sea, es una cosa increíble. Y es impresionante que muchas personas en este mes han hecho cosas increíbles y otras no han hecho prácticamente nada. ¿Cuál es la diferencia? Muy sencilla. Las personas que han hecho algo primero aceptaron que lo podían hacer. Aceptaron que tenían un potencial más grande de lo que estaban manifestando y aceptaron que tenían la capacidad y el valor de crear un resultado diferente. Y punto número 2, aceptaron el dolor de pagar el precio, de crear hábitos distintos que los llevaran a construir simplemente resultados diferentes. Por lo tanto, te lo comparto con mucho amor, te lo comparto con todo mi corazón. Aprende no solamente a aceptar tu grandeza, lo cual es importante, es el primer paso. Mucha gente no lo hace y por eso, por mucho que esté dispuesto a aceptar el dolor, no construye una vida con significado. Aprende realmente, acepta una vida de amor, de grandeza. Acepta tu grandeza con mucho amor, pero también acepta el dolor de pagar el precio. Y por eso no hay nadie mejor que John Maxwell para explicarnos esta parte. De verdad, se me hizo como anillo al dedo esta lección. Esta lección habla acerca de la ley del dolor. Y espero que la escuches y que de verdad aprendas de ella con mucho amor. Son veintitantos minutos de lección, pero definitivamente es una joya esta lección que yo creo que acompaña perfectamente bien esta pequeña lección, esta primera parte de lección que te quise dar simplemente para darte mucho más contexto, para ampliar un poco más el principio poderosísimo de John Maxwell que nos va a compartir a continuación. Y punto número 2, que tiene que ver obviamente mucho con lo que hemos venido estudiando. Así que te lo voy a compartir por acá para que obviamente lo puedas ver. Habla acerca de la ley del dolor y espero que disfrutes mucho esta lección. Ahí te va.
I want to talk to you in this session about the law of pain. And the law of pain just says that good management of bad experiences leads to great growth. And of all the laws, this is the most painful to talk about because it's really about adversity, it's about trials, it's about difficulties, it's about setbacks, it's about things that we really don't talk about, but I will promise you some of your greatest growth, if you have the right response to it, will be through your greatest difficult times in your life. And that's a fact. And so we're going to talk about how do we take bad experiences and turn them into good experiences of personal growth. And I want to start by just saying to you that every pain introduces us to ourselves. In other words, when we have a pain, it really lets us meet ourselves. It's kind of like, okay, look at where you are, look at what's happening, look at realistically what's going on around you. And there's just something about difficult situations that allows me to meet me and to know me better and to discover me and to find me. And I have a pain file. I'm not talking about like a file where I have all my pain. I have a pain file that is in my heart. And so when I talk and think about inexperience, I know what the pain of inexperience is like. I know what it's like to say, I've never been through that before. And I know what it is to have the pain of incompetence and say, oh, I should have known better than that. And I know what it's like to have the pain of disappointment where I say, I wish that would have never happened. Now, as I'm introducing you to my pain file, are you connecting with this? I mean, how many of you have known the pain of conflict where you've asked yourself, why can't we get along? Huh? Are you talking about it? And that's even with myself. And the pain of change where, boy, I just didn't want this to happen, or the pain of bad health, where I lost what I thought I would always have. I can remember when I had my heart attack, I thought I just assumed I would have a good long health. Or the pain of hard decisions where I had to one day realize I couldn't make everybody happy. There's the pain of financial loss where I thought, ooh, I'd like to have that back. There's the pain of relationship losses where I just grow in a different direction than other people. There's the pain of not being number one where you think, boy, I kind of think I deserve that. I kind of deserve to be there. The pain of responsibility. Well, why is it that everybody expects so much out of me? But in my pain file, the pain I'm going to talk to you now is one that it's kind of puts a smile on my face. But it's the pain of being stupid. A lot of these pains you can say, well, it just happened to me. But the pain of being stupid is kind of like, there's no one I can look to except me. You with me? And all of a sudden I just think, wow, how dumb can I be? And I'm going to tell you a story. And the story is, a few years ago, I accidentally, and it was an accident, took a gun into the airport. Okay, so and I know you're already thinking, oh, he's going to be real stupid here, isn't he? And you have to understand, I travel all the time. So I kind of know that that's not the thing to do, take a gun through an airport. In fact, and I'm going to tell you the story. I'm going to tell it to you by reading a blog that I put out right after it happened. But before I tell you that story, as soon as it happened, Charlie Wetzel and Stephanie, they helped me a lot with social media and writing the books and stuff. And we tweeted literally right after this happened, definition of stupid. Receive gun as a gift, forget it's in carry-on, and go to the airport. security not happy. And so on March the 13th, 2009, we literally blogged, "Stupid is as stupid does." The reason I started blogging was to teach leadership and try to add value to you, my readers. But in today's post, I need to tell you something of a more personal nature. I've done a lot of stupid things in my life. Early in my marriage, I would win arguments with my wife, Margaret, and hurt her feelings really badly. And I've made business moves that have lost tens of thousands of dollars at a time, and I've made leadership decisions that have led to failures in my organizations. But up until now, none of the dumb things I've done has gotten me arrested. Here's how this came about. Last Sunday, I was in Birmingham, Alabama, speaking for the Church of the Highlands. It's a wonderful church, marvelous leader named Chris Hodges. He's a good friend, and the congregation is fantastic. I had a terrific time. And most of the time when I have speaking engagements, I fly commercially, especially when the commitments are far from home. But when the engagement is not very far, and it means that I'll be able to sleep at home in my own bed, I'll sometimes fly on a private airplane. And that was the case last Sunday. I got on the plane, and someone from Chris's congregation gave me a gift, a handgun. "This is for Margaret," he said, "so she can feel safe while you're traveling." Now, I'm not really a gun person. I don't think there's anything wrong with people who own guns. I have been hunting a few times with friends, and so I've shot a gun before, but I've really never bought one, and it's just not really my cup of tea. But I knew that this was being given as a gift from the heart, so I accepted it, put it in my carry-on. I got on the private plane, and I flew home. And then I forgot about it. For the next several days, I was focused on preparation for upcoming speaking engagements in Dallas. And there was a moment when I thought to myself, "Oh, I better remember to get that gun out of my bag." But because I was in the middle of writing, I didn't want to stop. And by the time yesterday rolled around, it had completely left my mind. If you're my age, you may remember a cartoon character called Mr. Magoo. He was a man who seemed to wander from danger to danger without ever getting hurt. My friends used to call me Mr. Magoo. And for those of you that are a little younger, they've also called me Forrest Gump. Well, off I went to the airport in my full Mr. Magoo mode in security. I put my carry-on bag on the conveyor belt and didn't think of anything of it. Truly, it's one of the stupidest things I've ever done. You can probably guess the rest. I was arrested, handcuffed, taken to jail, fingerprinted, photographed. Needless to say, it opened my eyes to a world that I've only seen in the movies. I was glad when I posted bail and was able to leave. I said this post would be of a personal nature, but there's still a leadership lesson to be learned from it. First, take responsibility for your own actions. What I did was wrong. It was my fault. I certainly didn't intend to break the law, but I will face up to the consequences. The second lesson is to use the words of my friend Kevin Myers when he says, "Stupid hurts." If you're not paying attention and you do something stupid, it's going to hurt you. In the end, I just hope my mistake isn't going to hurt anybody but me. Now, I just read you the blog of a personal experience of me of, yes, I took a gun through the airport. Now, what I didn't say in the blog is that I remembered the gun was in the briefcase, but I remembered it right when it was under the screen. I wrote in the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, the law of timing. It's obvious I don't follow that law personally. I may be the author of it, but in fact, I remember right out loud, I said, "There's a gun in there." Which shows you I'm very honest, but quite stupid again. I mean, it could have slipped by, you know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like, in case you don't see it, I'd like to report on myself here. Yeah, Mr. Stupid, there's a gun in the briefcase. And it was a very humiliating. In fact, I'll never forget when I got, after the fingerprint and all the stuff, they had an attorney waiting for me when I got out of the jail, of which the attorney looked at me and he said, "John," he said, "let's just keep this totally quiet. Don't say one word. We can't let this get out." I said, "It's already out." He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, the sheriff that interviewed me for 2 hours, in the second hour, he smiled and said, 'I love your books.'" And I told him, I said, "Well, I saw my breakthrough right then." I said, "Oh, okay, he loves my books." And I said, "Well, if you can get me out of this mess, I'll sign every book I've ever written to you." And he looked at me and he said, "That's a bribe." And then he said, you're going to have to post bail. And when I travel internationally, especially when I was getting ready I keep cash with me because you just never know when you need some cash. And so he said it was going to be $3,000. I said, that's no problem. And I went over and I went in my briefcase and I started taking $100 bills, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I got to about 10. And all of a sudden I realized that 3 sheriffs were now standing over me, watching me peel $100 bills off. And the guy says, do you do drugs also? I went in literally to get my picture taken, my mug shot, and the guy looked at me and said, oh, this is Mr. Maxwell. He said, you can take the handcuffs off of him. You can take the handcuffs off me. And he said, I just love to hear you speak. And when they so when I got out, and the attorney said, I think that we want to keep this quiet. I said, it's out. And it was out, and for the next 4 hours, over 60 reporters were outside my home. And that's the story. Now, obviously, I got through that process, totally exonerated. I'm all fine. It's not on my records now, which means I can go to Europe tonight and travel, and so it's okay. But I just want you to know that when we think of tough experiences and pain, there's a lot of lessons to learn. And I learned a lot of lessons from them. And I'm going to share with you just some of the stuff that I've learned. But before I share with you some of the stuff I've learned, I think you should look at your neighbor and just say, we truly are listening to a stupid man. I think that would be good. He's our friend, but he isn't very smart. You know what I'm saying? So here's what I know about bad experiences. Tell me if you relate to this. Raise your hand if you believe that. Everyone has bad experiences. How many of you relate to that, huh? How many of you have a bad experience you're going through right now? How many of you are sitting beside that bad experience? Oh, uh-oh. Some of you who just raised your hand on that last question, you now have a bad experience. Even a worse experience than you thought that you had. Isn't it true? Some days you're the pigeon, and some days you're the statue. That's so good, isn't it? I just love that. What was John known for when he died? Well, the pigeon statue quotes what he was known for. I remember in 2008 when the economy really went bad, and I sat down and I wrote a speech on how to do good when things turn out bad. And it became a huge popular speech, and probably for 3 years, 2008, 2011, everywhere I went, people say, do that how to do good when things go bad speech. What were they wanting? They were wanting to get some hope because everybody was going through, many people were going through great financial distress. So everybody has bad experiences. We're experiencing it. And if you don't have one right now, just guess what? I got good news for you. You'll have one tomorrow. Because that's the way life is, isn't it? Life is just that way. And what we do with that bad experience is really who we become. And that's kind of the theme of this law. So anyway, everyone has them. The second thing I would say about bad experiences is no one likes them. No one likes them. I have never run into a person and say, you know what? I get totally motivated by bad experiences. There's just something that is endearing about losing my money, losing my health. Oh my gosh, if I could just have a bad day, it would really be a great day. No one I've never read it's like Lucy who told Charlie Brown one time, she said, I don't want ups and downs, I just want ups. And I think that's where all of us, if we could vote, how many of you would vote for ups? How many of you vote for ups? How many now would vote for downs? Well, that's almost like an IQ question. Vote for downs. Who wants a down? But we all have them. No one likes them. But here's what I want you to catch. Very few make bad experiences positive experiences. And what this lesson is all about, and what this law is all about, is when you have a bad experience, how do you make it a positive experience? How do you turn something dark into something bright? Warren Lester said, success in life comes not from holding a good hand, but in playing a poor hand well. And I love that. Because every one of us when it comes to life, have held in our hands a deck of cards, of which they just weren't good. So how do I turn my pain into gain? Number one, choose a positive life stance. Now, I like this better than somebody just saying choose a positive attitude, because a positive life stance is your overall frame of reference. It's my overall frame of reference. In other words, it's a set of attitudes, it's a set of assumptions, it's a set of expectations that people have about themselves and about their world. And so a positive life stance means that I have a positive set of expectations and assumptions about my life. And in fact, it's so important that I have it laminated, and I pull this out once in a while. Now, you have to understand, when something's important to me, I laminate it. Okay, you just have to understand that's what I do. I don't know what, there's something I like about laminating. It doesn't tear. If I would have been Moses, yeah, I would have. If I'd have been Moses, I'd have gone on top of Mount Sinai. I'd have laminated those 10 commandments. I sure really wouldn't put them on stone. Those babies break. You know that. I'd have laminated and I'd have stuck them in every little pocket I could find. I said, here, you take that, take that, take that. I would laminate. So I laminate important things. And so when I talk about this positive life stance, it's laminated. And I'm going to take you through it because this makes all the sense of the world. And when I give it to you, you're going to say, this is a tool I can use. I can have a positive life stance. So here it is. Number one, life is filled with good and bad. That's just a fact. In your life and my life, there's no such thing as all good, and there's no such thing as all bad. But there is such a thing as good and bad. We have good days, we have bad days. We have highs, we have lows. Is that not true? I mean, that's true for all of us. So it's not like one person got lucky and one person got unlucky. Unlucky people have good things happen to them, and lucky people have bad things happen to them. So good and bad, life is just filled with good and bad. Number two, some of the good and bad I can't control. It's just life. In other words, there's some things that happen to me that are really good, and I can't take any credit for it. It came my way. And there's some things that happen to me that they're really bad, but I couldn't control that either. It just came away. Would you relate to that, huh? In other words, it was out of my control. It wasn't anything that I could have done. Positive attitude, negative attitude doesn't really matter. There's just some things that are going to happen to you that are going to be good in life, and some things that are bad. And the third thing is, some of the good and some of the bad will find me. It's going to find you. In other words, good things come looking for you, but bad things come looking for you, okay? And it's going to find you. And we'd like to duck, but it'll find you. And number four, if I have a positive lifespan, if I have a positive life stance, in other words, I got this mental positive assumption. Here's what I know. If I have a positive life stance, the good and the bad will become better. I didn't say if I have a positive life stance that the bad will disappear. It won't. It'll just get a little bit better. Are you with me? The good will get a little bit gooder, okay, and the bad will get a little bit better, okay? It just will if I have a positive life. Now, number five, if I have a negative life stance, that's my way of living, is basically seen through a negative lens. If I have a negative life stance, the good and the bad will become worse. In other words, a negative lens will take everything and take it south, make it worse, just like a positive lens or a life stance will take everything and make it a little bit better. Now that I know that, now let me read it to you. Life is filled with good and bad. Some of the good and the bad I can't control. It's life. Some of the good and bad will find me. If I have a positive life stance, the good and the bad will become better. If I have a negative life stance, the good and bad will become worse. Therefore, I choose a positive life stance. This is essential. This is essential if you're going to get the great value out of the law of pain. It's essential to understand that what you and I do have control of is not our circumstances, but how we handle those circumstances. And the best way to do it is to, I think, develop a positive life stance. Another way to turn pain into gain is to embrace the value of bad experiences. Just embrace them. Because what separates the people who thrive from people who barely survive? What separates them? It's almost always how they accept and respond to bad experiences in their life. And let me just say this. The third thing I would say about turning pain into gain is embrace the pain and develop creativity. There's something about once you accept the difficult and even make it your friend, that you begin to be creative with it instead of being defensive of it. Let me tell you, you can't be defensive and creative at the same time. So what you hate, you can't be creative in. So you've got to embrace the ball, you got to walk over the ball, and the natural response with pain is what? Shut down, to go inward. And I'm telling you the exact opposite. When you have pain, when you have difficulties, open up and go outward. I had a friend who had cancer, and basically she said, here's what I learned, that the bad experience of cancer would not define me. That I would use that experience to leverage what I wanted to be. And she said, what I wanted to be was creative. I wanted to learn how to beat cancer, and I wanted to learn how to have a good attitude. And she said, I turned all of those negatives into creativity in my life. And I have discovered that people change when they hurt enough they have to, when they learn enough they want to, and when they receive enough they're able to. And in the area of difficulties and bad experiences and pain, hurting enough that I have to, ask the creative question, what changes must I make to get better in my life? Learning enough that I want to, ask the creative question, what am I learning that encourages me right now to get better? In receiving enough that you're able to, what am I receiving that's going to make me better in my life? And so I sat down and I took this law and I began to say, okay, put it in a capsule, John, summarize it, give it to the people in bite-sized pieces so you can take something home from a bad experience. Because you either have had a bad experience, you're having a bad experience, or you will have a bad experience. So what I'm about to give you is a takeaway, okay? So as you get ready for whatever that bad experience is going to be in your life, let me give you just a few what I call pain principles. These are just pain principles that you can go to the bank on, but they'll help you. Number one is pain brings reality to my life. Basically, pain tells me that life is not easy, life is not fair, and life is not understandable. It just isn't. So pain brings reality to my life. Number two, it allows me to reflect and evaluate. Done correctly, if I respond in the correct way, I pull away from that pain long enough to reflect and to evaluate. You see, facing difficulties is inevitable, but learning from them is optional. So everybody faces the difficulties. It's inevitable. You're going to have them. I'm going to have them. So everybody goes through the first part of the inevitability of facing difficulties, but the option of learning, now that's a choice, and not everybody learns. Number three, pain motivates me to make a positive change. Pain has the potential to have me to hurt enough that I'll say, I've got to make changes in my life, that if I really wasn't hurting enough, I wouldn't make those changes. Number four, pain humbles me. What it basically tells me is I don't have life together. I don't have all the answers. I'm not Mr. Smooth. Life is bumpy. It helps me to identify with people that are hurting. Going back to the gun in the airport, the people who loved the gun in the airport story the most were my children. I mean, after we kind of realized that I was going to survive, they said, Dad, this is truly maybe the greatest gift you've ever given to us as a parent. And I'm looking at him and I'm saying, what do you mean this is the greatest gift I've ever given to you as a parent? Oh, they said, Dad, you lowered the stupid bar so low. You talk about grace. They said the stupid bar is so low. In fact, the statement anymore, when any of the kids do anything that's kind of stupid, they'll look at each other and say, oh, that was stupid. Oh, my God. Ooh, that was really stupid. And then they smile, but, oh, not as stupid as taking a gun through an airport. Isn't that fun? And it's, pain is just a very humbling thing. But done correctly and understood correctly and embraced correctly, pain truly makes us a better person. It really does. I was spending time with a friend that was dying of cancer, and he knew that his his life was only a few months from being taken from him. And I'll never forget, it was just the two of us, and we were having a kind of a just friend-to-friend, loving, intimate, honest moment. And I'll never forget, he said to me, he said, "John, I would have never asked for this, but now I would never ask not to experience this. I didn't want it, but what it's doing in me and what it's doing for me is helping me to become something better than I could ever be." Lexi Bernhardt said, "I've changed irrevocably, permanently. My soul is richer and my heart is fuller in brokenness than it ever was without. I've learned true despair, and it makes me learn and appreciate true joy." I was going through a very difficult time, a time of adversity, and several years ago, my father gave this to me, and I've had it now for probably 30 years. And it's laminated too, okay? And just let me read this to you, and this will kind of wrap up the law of pain. One day, a farmer's donkey fell into a well. The animal cried pitifully for hours, and the farmer tried to figure out what to do. Finally decided the animal was old, and the well needed to be covered up anyway, so it just wasn't worth trying to retrieve the donkey. So he invited all of his neighbors to come over and help him, and they all grabbed a shovel and they began to shovel dirt into the well. The donkey realized what was happening and cried horribly. Then, to everyone's amazement, he quieted down. A few shovel loads later, the farmer finally looked in the well, and he was astonished at what he saw. With each shovel of dirt that hit his back, the donkey was doing something amazing. He would shake off the dirt and take a step up. And as the farmer's neighbors continued to shovel the dirt on top of the animal, he would shake it off and take a step up, and pretty soon everyone was amazed as the donkey stepped over the edge of the well and happily trotted off. Life is going to shovel dirt on you, all kinds of dirt. The trick is getting out of the well is to shake it off and take a step up. Each of our troubles is a stepping stone. We can get out of the deepest wells just not by stopping, but never giving it up. Just shake it off and take another step up.